Hey guys, I'm with Gwendolen Bokine, nutritional coach and entrepreneur, aka Gwennie on the go. How are you doing today, Gwennie?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm great. It's really glad to be here with you. We
Good.
just went through a whole mess of technical troubles, but we're really glad to be here on YouTube Live. Um, First question I like to ask people is, what do you wish you knew 10 years ago?
10 years ago, I wish I knew really the unhealthy effects of animal protein on our organs, on on our whole physiological being, and even mental health. I really do wish I knew then what I know now.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, I mean, I'm someone who like I need to eat a lot of animal protein. For the sake of working out, but I like totally buy into what you're saying. Like I don't really know the effects. So you might be like,
No, you're
you
not.
might be-
Then you really don't buy into what I'm saying. If you feel that you need to eat the animal protein, and I guess this addresses one of the other questions that is always asked: is where would I get my protein?
you know, that's what I'm thinking. Like, no, I'm open right now on this call live to being like convinced to not do like be eating animal protein. So right now, no, I'm not sold on that. But I would like you to. It will yeah.
You
The
know, a
biggest
little
thing is
more.
like how can I get the protein? Because that's the biggest thing.
Oh man,
Um, but then yeah, also tell us more about why animal protein is
so toxic.
toxic, right?
Well, the obvious is that it's full of saturated fat, cholesterol, toxins like TMAO, and then hormones. Where I mean, where all animals have hormones, they don't have to be injected with hormones to have hormones.
Hmm.
So that's really a big one. You know, when you're dealing with hormonal cancers, pesticides, antibiotics. I don't know if you've ever watched animals being slaughtered. The
Oh yeah, it's horrible.
pain. Well, if you believe in anything metaphysical, that gets transcended right into our own bodies.
Mm.
And equally important is that animal protein contains the number one missing nutrient. And I say nutrient with quotes because it's technically not a nutrient, but it really is in sustaining a healthy life, and that's fiber. Animal protein has absolutely no fiber, just as processed foods. Now, sugar's been vilified, and sugar's not great, but animal protein is really the elephant in the room, and people will argue this, and I'm not going to get into the argument. I base it on
Mhm.
the evidence. And this leads me to the second half, which is really to convince you that we unfortunately have been led down a road since really industrialization and the creation of the assembly line to this reductionist thinking in vitamins and minerals and really not looking at food in its whole form. And so we get nutrients not just from protein and carbs and fat, but everything inside of it, all the antioxidants, you really can't quantify it. And so protein is actually found in every single thing that we eat. And I would argue, Matt, that you're probably getting too much protein if you're consuming animal protein on a daily basis. So I'm going to ask you this
Mm.
question, which
Okay.
is, do you know anyone who's protein deficient?
Um, uh, I mean, I to me the way I look at it is it's like I have to eat a lot of protein because because it supports like my strength training regimen. And when you say protein deficient, probably not, probably no. I don't know if I know anyone protein deficient, but when it comes to like weightlifting or strength training, then I know plenty of people who aren't getting enough protein in that context.
And how do you know that?
Um, just based on uh, what I hear from like typically from like like gaining muscle kind of advice is that you need like 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, something like that. So for me, like that might be like 160 grams of protein that I need, or 170, and that I know that's a lot depending on who you're talking to. but that's like the advice that I hear about how much protein do you need to gain the kind of muscle.
Um, you're saying 160 grams. You know, average wise, a man does not need to get more. An average man doesn't need to get more than 50 grams of protein a day. And the thing is that when you're getting, you know, the saying goes that bodybuilders, the people who are eating the tuna out of the can, etc., lead the shortest lives.
Mm,
Um, and remember that this excessive animal protein that you're getting in the animal protein that you're eating, because you certainly don't need 160 grams of protein,
hmm
even if you're working out, etc. Um, you still would only need. I don't know how much you work out. I couldn't really say that, but I would argue probably not more than 70, 80 grams of protein, which you can do through plant-based eating, most certainly. Um, you have to realize all the stress and pressure that you're putting on your organs when you're eating that amount of animal protein. And you're right, it's building muscles, cells in the muscles. And especially as we age, we don't want that cell proliferation. We don't want so many cells because remember, cells are always mutating, right?
hmm
And then when you're eating the hormones in the animals, that's helping grow whatever is growing. And so that saturated fat, that cholesterol, the hormones, all of that is putting an enormous amount of pressure on your kidneys, especially because the kidneys have to filter it. Um, Animal protein creates a lot of acid in the body. So your bones ultimately will have to leach minerals in order to neutralize that acid. If you look at the countries with the highest rates of osteoporosis, bone, hip fractures, they're the highest dairy eating countries.
hmm
And then that all has to be filtered through the kidneys. And when the bones are neutralizing and they're releasing the minerals, you get bone pieces in that, you know, microscopic, that has to go through the kidneys and that actually clogs the kidney filters. It also puts a lot of pressure on the liver because the liver has to produce the bile to break that. Break down the fat in particular down. It puts a lot of pressure again on the gallbladder because the gallbladder stores the the bile. It puts a lot of pressure on the heart because with all that fat and cholesterol going through your bloodstream, did you know that after you eat a high fatty meal, you know, your cells are all bouncing around, your blood cells in your bloodstream. After a high fatty meal, they slow down and now they're sticking against each other. They actually lose about 20% of the oxygen
Damn.
to the mitochondria. I mean, it's an assault on the body. It really is. And unfortunately, the meat and dairy industry has led us to believe, and they have billions of dollars to do this, that we need it in order to get our protein. And that's absolutely false.
Mm,
And you can easily get all of your protein requirement, all of your you know, minerals. I mean, there are certain vitamin B12. Everybody should be taking that after the age of 50. Vitamin D3, especially if you're living in the Northeast, obviously.
right. Right.
Um, the omega-3, and really that's with fish. And again, fish is highly toxic and there's
Mm,
no fiber. Um, so you can get omega-3 if you take from flaxseed, which is ALA omega-3. You want the DHA, EPA. You can easily take an algae. You don't take a fish oil, but an algae oil that contains that. So these nutrients that you could say a plant-based person would be missing could easily be made up and is worth it to give up that cholesterol, the saturated fat, the hormones. In fact, there's such a high correlation between hormonal cancers like breast, ovarian, and prostate and animal protein.
mm. I think I definitely buy that. And I like that you're emphasizing micronutrients and like fiber because you hear a lot about you don't really hear a lot about that like those two things especially when it comes to diet like you hear about protein and carbohydrates and fats and then fats on both
Macro.
ends of the
Mhm.
spectrum like sometimes people talk about fats like healthy fats and that's like kind of a trend right now and then like unhealthy
Trend,
fats.
trend. Just remember that. Trend,
Right.
bad,
And it's
money,
then I'm
marketing.
confused because it's so hard because there's so much information about
You're right.
foods. Like one day healthy fats are really in, and like the next like this other things seems like kind of in. So it's like how can we make sense of all this nutritional information?
Healthy fats are important, and vegans tend to go awry when they exclude all fat.
Mhm.
But if the fat doesn't have fiber in it, it's not healthy. So guess what? And this is one of the questions I think that you asked was something about tell me something that's true that nobody agrees with me
Yeah.
is that olive oil is not a good fat.
Mhm.
I'm sorry. Olive oil is not a good fat because it doesn't have fiber in it. It's processed. Coconut oil is a worse fat because it's one of the only nuts or plant-based foods that has saturated fat. So
Mm.
those are not healthy fats. This is all marketing. You want a healthy fat? I agree. Go ahead, have a healthy fat, any nut, any seed. And then you're going to get minerals and you're going to get fiber. Avocado, those are healthy fats. So you do need healthy fats. Your cells need healthy fats. That's how nutrients are transported through fat, but you really do want a healthy fat. And it's really not that complex. I know there's so much out there, the 30-day diet or the 30 whatever it is, the South Beach, the paleo, which is such a misconception. The Atkins, I mean, he did die of heart disease. You do know he fell. He had a heart attack.
Whoa. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Um, and so there's all these misconceptions, but really it's very simple. And that's why Gwennie on the Go, the theme is food, activity, and nature. And nature is really the key to what we, you and me, all of us as humans should be eating because our closest ancestor is really the chimpanzee, gorilla, ape, and they are vegetarian. See
Mm.
my teeth? Those
Hmm.
are not lion's teeth. Those are not meant to cut through flesh.
True.
And
Good
so,
point.
go
Tell
ahead.
us a little bit about fiber,
Yeah.
um, and what exactly is fiber? And you've been saying it's really important, and I really
Huge.
want to know more about that.
I would have to actually look something up to tell you specifically, so I don't sound like I don't know what I'm talking about. But
Mhm.
it's short chain um, sugars. That's what it really is. I think it's short chain sugars, carb that break down and basically pool. You know the fiber in something, and you have soluble and insoluble that pull toxins from your bloodstream. Dr. Joel Furman could tell you much better. He's really, really good. That actually pull toxins from your bloodstream and help to form in your colon the stool that you're going to ultimately release. And you obviously know when you eat a high fiber meal,
Mhm.
um, particularly at night, and that's beans. You know, and I can't emphasize to make beans your number one protein. All sorts of beans because it's high in protein, high in fiber, and then all the micronutrients. Um, and then in your stool, it pulls the fat, it pulls the toxins in your stool to form a stool, and that's how you go to the bathroom. And what I was saying was, you know, when you eat a high fiber meal, particularly at night, I mean, you have to go to the bathroom in the morning.
Mhm.
And on Gwennie on the Go, and I have a page on Facebook, and I have a little quick tips to a healthier you video. And the first tip is to always eat fruit in the morning, whether you're diabetic or not. You eat fruit, and fruit is all fiber, and it digests quickly to help you go to the bathroom even before you go to have your coffee. And going to the bathroom, as much as it may seem uncomfortable to talk about, it's really one of the most critical markers of good or bad health. Um,
Mm.
if
Like
you're
the
constipated,
amount of
that's
time,
an issue. I'm sorry?
the amount of times you go to the
The
bathroom.
amount, what it looks like, the
Wow.
amount. But morning time is the time because you've gone to bed now, you've had a chance to digest. And when you wake up, you want to be able to go to the bathroom, even before coffee. And most people will have to drink a cup of coffee for the caffeine. Um, and
So
I tell clients, if anything, increase your fiber. When you put something in your mouth, ask yourself how much fiber does it have, and that will tell you how healthy it is.
mm. Interesting. Yeah, I never looked at fiber that way, and that's really interesting. What is it aside from the biology behind it? Like, what does it do to your the way you feel throughout the day?
Well, how could you not feel great when how do you feel after you go to the bathroom? Light, energetic. Like you can get up and you can face the world now, right? As
Mhm.
opposed to being constipated and you haven't gone to the bathroom. I mean, I don't know that feeling. And so it's it's allowing everything to keep moving through the flow, and that's what you want. The key to success is flow,
Mhm.
and it goes physiologically as well. There is no doubt about it. So, Matt, when we leave from this interview, the one thing I'm going to ask you to do, because I don't think you're going to go from your animal protein and now switch over, even though I'd love to see you do that and
Mhm.
help you do
Right.
that. But just increase your fiber. And if we look at countries, now there's the China study by Dr. T. Colin Campbell.
Mhm.
Look at China, and we look at other parts of the world that were not big animal eaters, protein eaters, obviously processed food, etc. Everything in the grocery store. So if we look at those countries that ate the most amount of fiber, and when we talk about the Paleolithic era and beforehand, um, they ate about 100 grams of fiber a day. I mean, I can't even imagine getting to that today in our Western society. But the recommended is 30 to 40 grams of fiber, and most Americans consume maybe 14 grams
Mm.
of fiber. And it's no wonder that people are, what was that movie called? Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead. And I say this with such emphasis, not to scare people, but kind of to scare people, um, because I've read so much information. I can talk about the different certifications, etc. But I've also done it myself. Not that I was a heavy meat eater, but you realize how much animal protein you're eating, and it's really, when you look at the history of human evolution, it's not normal. We're not living in an era of deprivation where if you were able to kill an animal and not be killed by one, you were lucky because you
Right.
needed that fat because you didn't know when you were going to eat, to now living in an era of excess. And that's what we're doing. And despite all the drugs, the drug commercials we see on TV right after the McDonald's commercial and the
Right.
Applebee's commercial, um, cancer rates are only going up, heart disease, etc., type 2 diabetes. And these things like type 2 diabetes and heart disease and a lot of cancers are really preventable through diet.
Okay. And what are some foods that you can find fibers in? I know you've briefly touched on it.
Okay. Fruits and vegetables, don't underestimate them. Go into your grocery store or Whole Foods. Have you really checked out like your greens and fruits and all that there is to offer? I mean, it's worth spending the time and planning and investing and preparing um, to do that. So when I wake up in the morning, I have a few different fruits. Like I always have berries. Berries are key.
Okay.
Blueberries cross the blood-brain barrier. I mean, in all these studies on dementia and Alzheimer's, remember arteries go to the brain as they do to the heart, and they get clogged. Um, and so, any kind of berries. I've got oranges, I've got apples, I've got every day it's fruit. And no matter what I'm doing or where I'm going, I'm going to have fruit in the morning, even if it means I don't eat something else a little later. A big salad. Here's the other one, fruit, and then a big salad every day. Just start
Mm.
there. And in that salad, not just tomato, onion, lettuce,
Mhm.
cucumber, or whatever, throw some chickpeas in there. In New
Mm.
York City, in any city, a lot of places, you have salad bars. They're huge. They've got all kinds of beans, delicious. Put some walnuts in there, some seeds. Seeds are high in all types of minerals, zinc. Um, Magnesium. If
Right.
you eat your greens, you don't need any dairy for calcium.
Mhm.
Greens are loaded with calcium. Um, so just the salad and the fruit, you just start there,
Start
and
there, and then
you're in the right direction.
gotcha.
Go
You
ahead.
definitely, yeah, you definitely convinced me that I definitely need more fiber. I've been hearing. I know that vegetables are important. Like I've been trying to like make a habit of like eating like some broccoli every day, or and like kind of having at least some like a couple servings of vegetables. The confusing part is like sometimes I had heard that like fruits were not good because like it had sugar in it or
Yeah.
something. And I think you've convinced me that that's
That's
false.
so false. Not only, I mean, fruit has sugar, but that sugar breaks down so slowly. And of course, it's fructose, it's natural sugar in the fruit because of all the fiber. When you have
Hmm.
fiber, that means that the sugar breaks down much more slowly. Now, when we talk about type 2 diabetes, that's caused by insulin resistance. The
Hmm.
insulin can't get into the cell. What's causing that? Not the sugar. The cell is clogged. What's the cell clogged with? It's clogged with fat. That's the problem. And then the glucose can't get in there. And then you have high blood sugar. So now you just address the dripping sink by putting a bucket under it. And now
Hmm.
you can't have sugar foods or anything with sugar in it, like fruit. But actually, diabetics can have fruit. Again, instead of addressing the root problem, which is a leak in the sink. And the
Hmm.
leak in the sink is really a mutation of the cell because of fat getting into the cell. Now, people may disagree with me, but again, I've read a lot about this and I would wholeheartedly, and I can give you all the stories. You can go on nutritionfacts.org, and Dr. Michael Greger has all the videos and all the blogs and the stories. If you go Forks Over Knives, they also, you sign up for the newsletter, you will get story after case study of people
Yeah.
who have gone through this. Um,
And you
so
mentioned Joel Furman.
Dr. Joel Furman, who wrote Eat to Live, he also just wrote The End of Dieting, which I think is a great book.
Hmm.
And it's very specific, and that's what I really like about Joel Furman, who is completely 100% plant based. And this gets me into he talks about the G bombs.
Hmm.
The G bombs are greens, beans, onions, mushrooms. Onions and mushrooms have anthocyanins.
Hmm.
They are in and of themselves an important category. And then the other B is berries. And then the last one is seeds. He's not a big grain guy, but I do support eating grains. Brown rice still has fiber, even pasta. I love pasta and I love whole grain bread. I'm not giving up bread. It doesn't have fat. You want to get something that it does have protein.
Hmm.
I mean, with all the different pastas that have come out, the black bean pastas, they have lots of protein. I'd rather see you getting your protein from that than getting it from a steak or a burger or any of that because
Gotcha.
it's highly toxic. And
Hmm.
the thing is, when you go away from animal protein meat, you're going to feel tired. You're going to feel fatigued because n- your body stops producing certain enzymes because the meat comes in. One of those are carnitine and creatine. You start getting it from your animal protein, your own body stops producing it. Your colon stops producing it. So it takes time for that production to
Right.
happen.
The transition into a new
The
way of getting
transition,
protein.
yeah,
Right.
because you become dependent.
Gotcha.
Um, but it all takes time, but I will tell you this, and I mean, I don't know how you feel if you're energetic and, initially, when you make a change, the taste buds have to change, so you crave, you feel like you're missing something, but you give it time and you'll see, and I can talk, because I am a user. I mean,
Right.
I I was someone who was omnivore completely, not a big meat eater, but I did eat animal protein every day. It could be eggs for breakfast, a turkey sandwich for lunch,
Hmm.
and then something, it was always something with animal because it's so readily available to all of
True.
us.
True.
Um,
Right.
but
Well,
the more
thanks
I
so much.
Sorry, go ahead.
If there's anything else, is there anything else you didn't mention that you want to share
About me or just
about you, about something that you have to offer, about any other advice, um, anything?
well, I would say, and this my product that is coming out, which is herbs and spices on the go. And here's the just take a look at it. I've got a mixture of herbs or spices in a tea bag. So you just take it out. You could take some of it out to season. your
Nice.
vegetables. So you don't have to use oil, right? So
Mhm.
you're cooking Brussels sprouts. You take some of the herbs out of the bag, you put them in the pan, and then you put the Brussels sprouts in the pan, and then you just add a little water, and then you cook it. And here's my point about herbs and spices is that herbs and spices are actually a very powerful antioxidant punch. It increases the upload of antioxidants by 50% in your meal. It adds a lot of flavor and it replaces salt and oil. So, one of the things that I highly recommend, whether you're using herbs and spices, it just makes it easier, or you're growing your own herbs and spices, which I have videos on that. It's so easy to do. Start learning about your herbs and spices and start using them in your meals.
Do they have fiber or no?
It's not about fiber. They're not fibrous. It's not your source of fiber, but it's almost like taking a vitamin.
Okay. Like
Putting it,
like
it's
a
just a
natural vitamin.
concentration. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is what, if you look in the history of medicine, this is what Hippocrates and, the early goers of medicine used is herbs and spices, mint.
That
We have
makes
mint
sense.
gum now to settle the stomach, sage for memory.
That makes sense.
It's absolutely delicious. But the one thing was that I thought you were going to ask me was something you failed at.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, we little
I
limited
know.
time, and we kind of went off, and I like the way we went off. But yeah, if you could share something you felt at for sure. And then we got to wrap up.
I don't see myself as failing. It's just challenging, but I will say I've never had a successful relationship with a man. Like,
Mhm.
been in a successful relationship with a man ever. So I guess that's what if I had
Mhm.
to say failed, I'd say I failed there.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, it's not
You
necessarily
might wanna cut that
like
out of the video.
social pressure. um, but anyway, thanks very much for sharing and like everything that you shared. That's really really insightful, and I'm glad that I'm glad that we had like a kind of conflict of um, like me coming from a place of like I have to consume a lot of animal protein, and then you coming from a different place, and it's glad that we got to share these ideas, and I think that always differing opinions enhance each other. So I really appreciate it.
Well,
And you have
thank you.
convinced me on a lot of things, so I
I'm
appreciate
glad
that.
to hear it. A little follow-up on if you've made some of the changes, the fruit in the morning, having the big salad, increasing that. I really think that. Oh, this is what I wanna say as my
Yeah.
final, a
Okay.
game changer, and I want you to watch that movie. It's coming out. I was at the Plantrition Conference in San Diego, and it's a movie that's coming out. Cameron, what's his first name? Uh,
James.
James Cameron, he directs it.
Oh,
And they
interesting.
showed us the movie there. He is actually vegan, and his wife, they're whole
Oh,
food
interesting.
plant-based.
Hmm.
So Paul McCartney, quite a few people are, and these are all the biggest athletes in the world. This would be perfect for you, man.
Interesting, because that's the conflict:
Yeah.
athletic performance versus.
Yes.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, that sounds like a good movie. I would definitely watch
Game
that.
changers. Watch it.
Game Changers.
Game changers.
I'll
Yeah.
watch that.
It'll be out
Um,
soon
cool. In theaters.
in theaters.
This is now turning into
The
promotion for.
strongest. I know. No, but the only reason why I'm telling you is because it's really for you, someone who works out, who's active, who wants the muscular body and thinks in large part that the way you have to do it is by eating meat. That's the person that this movie is addressing.
I'll definitely watch that. Sounds perfect. Spot on. Thanks again so much, Gwen. Really appreciate
Thanks,
it, and
Matt.
I look forward to keeping in touch.
Okay, maybe you should keep the part about the failure with it's just that I saw that question and I just laughed and I thought,
Well, I mean, we're live right now, but like,
I know.
well,
Okay, whatever.
whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, okay.
All right. Well,
Nice
thanks
talking to
again.
you.
Nice talking to you.
Bye, everyone.